Welcome back to A Moment in Crime, the Leader Post's look digging through our archives into old crime stories. For this month, we're going to tell you the story of what is probably one of Regina's coldest of cold cases. It's the murder of a Regina police officer, and it has never been solved. This year marks the 85th anniversary of what is easily one of Regina's coldest cases. On August 6, 1933, a constable named George Anthony Leonard was gunned down in Regina streets. So think back to 1933. Officers in the evening went out on bike patrols. So he's back in the warehouse district of Regina, down around Winnipeg and 4th Avenue, behind a building called Canadian Liquid Air. And he notices a fellow who's kind of lingering in the area, doesn't quite fit. So he decides to roll his bicycle up closer to ask the fellow what he's doing. While he's doing that, two other men, come up from behind him. He sort of tries to get the guy's attention, and when the fellow turns around, according to eyewitnesses, they say that the fellow in front of him says something to the effect of, "Stick him up." And Leonard, at that moment, still with his hands on his bicycle, says, "What?" And a shot comes and it catches him in the right arm, just below the armpit. These other two men, according to eyewitnesses, come and they actually assist in this crime, and they have Leonard backed up against the wall while the man in front of him with this .32 caliber revolver is still pointing. He shoots Leonard 2 more times. One of those bullets catches him in the chest, and the other one catches him in the back. And then they take off running. Leonard collapses onto the ground, and he manages to drag himself along up to the warehouse building where there's an overhead door and it's slightly open. He manages to pull himself up and rolls inside that building. You can imagine the worker who's inside, who sees this bloodied police officer roll into his building, and he runs over to offer aid, and the officer says 2 words which are unknown to this day. They were unintelligible, and then Constable Leonard died. There is a huge manhunt. There was an exhibition going on in town at that time, and there was a lot of transient people moving through. If you can imagine, this is in the heart of the Depression. They rounded up some 300 people and brought them in and tried to question and sort through. There were bulletins sent out to police forces across the country, but at the end of the day, and to this day, no one has ever been arrested. Back in about 2005, Regina Police set up a cold case unit, and this was one of the cases that they thought they would kind of revisit, just to see if there was something there that might shake loose after a time. Police were given an old photograph that shows 2 men, one of whom is pointing a gun while the others have their hands up, and they're clearly kind of goofing around. There's a story that one of the men in that photo had talked about possibly being involved in this crime. They were trying to identify who all the men were in that photo, probably at that point having died already themselves, but still wanting to try to find answers to this mystery. There is a memorial that was erected in 1995 outside the Regina Police Station to commemorate Leonard and also one other officer who was killed in the line of duty. Those are the only two Regina police officers who have been killed in the line of duty, and both of those crimes remain unsolved. One of the interesting things that Leonard's case led to was a change in how officers in Regina carried their guns. Leonard was actually a crack shot. He had won the trophy that year for Regina Police for his marksmanship, and yet his gun was never fired that night. And what they believe was, at that time, officers had their guns in holsters, but they were underneath their tunics. And they believe that Leonard simply couldn't get his tunic open in time to get to his gun. And as a result, the coroner's inquest, the jury recommended that officers change the way they carry their guns. And so, of course, to this day, Regina police officers carry a sidearm outside of their uniforms.